Greetings, lords, and welcome to Board with Video Games, the gaming podcast that strives for that right balance of coverage for the games you play on the table and on your television. You can think of us as the Oreo cookie of gaming podcasts. We're a proud member of the PSVG Podcast Network, and I'm one of your hosts, Kyle. Joining me, as always, on this co-op adventure, the guy who only takes his Oreos one way, and that's double stuffed. Josh, how are you doing this evening?
Very good. I only take them one way through the mouth.
Have you ever had a double stuffed Oreo?
Oh, of course. Come on.
You know what? I don't think I have. I don't think I've ever actually had a double stuffed Oreo.
That's crazy talk.
I know.
You gotta take the top off of that, and then you do quadruple stuff Oreo.
Whoa, wait, dude, that's just crazy. I feel like that shouldn't be allowed. That probably is illegal in some states. That's a lot of stuffing.
It depends on what you do to it after you do that. That's where the illegality comes in.
Man. But this is not Oreo Oration. That's a show that's owned by someone else. That is a show that is done by someone else. This is a podcast about board games and video games. So thank you so much for joining us this week. Any feedback, questions, or suggested topics, hit us up at Board with VG on Twitter. Check out the awesome stuff we'll be posting there. Josh is killing it over on Instagram with posts, and be sure to follow us on Instagram, also at Board with VG. And then also tag everything that you're doing, the games you're playing, with hashtag Board with VG, so we can check out what you're doing, whether or not you label us directly. So with that out of the way, let's get to some awesome gaming. Josh, what has been taking up space on your table this week?
Oh, boy. Well, we got Pandemic Legacy Season 2. I know I can't really talk about it.
Have you started it yet?
Because spoilers. Well, so I don't know if I ever told you my dilemma. So
yes.
No, I did tell you my dilemma.
Yes.
We played with two of our friends.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's been over a year since we started Season 1. So my wife and I decided that the two of us would do Legacy 2 on our own. And it says, like, you don't have to have played Season 1. Well, right away, I feel like the narrative requires you to have some knowledge of Season 1. So I'm like, okay, this is off to a slow start. And then, I read the book. There's a tutorial or a prologue mission that they recommend you play it as much as you want. We were going to do that, and then I couldn't get her to commit to doing anything. So I was a little frustrated. So I said, okay, and this isn't a spoiler, but there's a part in the book while you're going through the setup phase where you are to you name 3 what they call havens in the game right away, and then you create 5 characters right away. So I said, can we at least do that?
Now, here's the important question.
Yes.
Am I one of the characters you created?
No, all of our characters are based off of original names, based off of other things. So, like, one of the characters reminded me of like an Avatar character, the way the girl had her like face painted on, and she had like braids. So I looked up, because I couldn't remember Zoe Saldana's character name from Avatar. So I named that girl that name. I'm already forgetting the name. When we started, I named that character Bastion after one of my favorite games. And then
which is a great game, by the way.
Yeah. And then my wife named the other 3 characters. So we named them, took care of the board, realized we probably should have bought better Sharpies, maybe finer point Sharpies. So I think we'll do that before we continue. But I'm going to talk to you about the game I did actually play.
Okay.
When we played it, our friends came over that normally play Legacy with us, and they saw that I had it, and then they were like, we want to play that with you. Can we just, like, we're kind of done with Legacy Season 1. We're kind of at a stopping point. So can we just play this with you? And I was like, I was like, yeah, I want to play with you guys, but so now we have to decide, do we want to potentially ruin our friendship and not include them in this? Or do I want to potentially never finish Legacy Season 2 as well?
Or you get 2 copies of it and you play one with them and one just the 2 of you.
We might just get another copy, give it to them as a gift, and then play with them. But anywho, we'll talk about Pandemic Legacy once we both start getting into games and we can give people spoiler alerts and stuff. So one of my other friends came over who we never see. So I let him pick the game. I said, go into the other room, pick a game. I got all these games. So he walks around, he's looking at all my games, and he picks the Big Book of Madness, which is a great game.
I'm a fan. I like it.
So he picks it out. I'm like, great, okay, cool. This is easy to learn. So we get down, and of course, I forgot all the rules. So I'm trying to explain the rules, and I'm telling the rules wrong, and everyone's like, let's just use the book, and we'll just go. So the setup, the base of I'll say this, before we started playing, I told them my wife and I had played this twice in a row. It's one of the first board games my wife has wanted to play immediately after playing. Like, she never wants to play a game twice in a row. So that's good. It says volumes for the game. We did lose both games. So we're setting the game up, and here's the premise. You play, all your characters are, I want to say, like students in a school. I mean, this is very much Harry Potter style board game.
Yes, it really is.
You play students. Each student has a special ability. There's 10 characters available to play. It's a 2 to 5 player game. I wish I had the game in front of me because I would tell you who made it. It's by Yellow, which is IELLO for you people who don't avidly play board games. They're a great company. They make a lot of very family-friendly and accessible games. And all the games are beautiful, stunning artwork. This game is no exception. So what you do is you pick your character, you go through the setup phase, and essentially what you're doing is while you play the game, you're literally opening this quote-unquote book that you put together. It's the Big Book of Monsters, or Madness, sorry. And it's very Lovecraftian as well. Like, you take horror or madness as you play, and that's basically how your character deals with the crazy things it's experiencing. Like, if you were to walk into a haunted house, you're stuck in there for an hour, you're slowly going to degrade mentally. So they make your characters represent that. And what you do is you flip the top of the book open, and you will have a monster on the left side of the book. And the monster inflicts a immediate effect on you, which is always bad. And then it also inflicts curses. And they're all elemental based. So you have earth, wind, water, fire, and air. No, that's wind. Ugh. Earth, wind, water, fire. Yeah, earth, wind, water, fire. And as what happens is these curses that come out, they're typically a curse card that has a negative side effect on it. And usually 4 of the same icon, depending on the curse. So if it's an air curse, you have 4 air icons on it. And you need to spend 4 air cards, which are in your deck, to dispel that curse. You are allowed to, each character has a support deck where you can put cards on the outside of your character, which are then considered a pool where any active player can take cards out of that pool to use to cure these curses. And as you progress, you don't have to cure all the cures in order to progress. Basically, if you can get to the end monster at the end of the book, that's really the only monster you need to defeat. But you have these things called madness tokens, and if they run out, you lose the game. And these madness tokens are constantly given to your characters during the game. So if you decide to pass on curses for a round, you might get 8 madness, which is debilitating, and can in a 5-player game you only get 30 madness. So that's almost a third of the available madness in potentially the first round. So your goal is hand management, communicating, using special abilities. And if you do manage to cure all the curses that are on the board, you will get a positive victory reward. But if there's even one single curse left, you will suffer a defeat. You'll suffer defeat, and you will have to take a penalty for that as well. This game is punishing. It is very difficult. In fact, our first game maybe only lasted 40 minutes, and someone was like, "Can we just play this again?" Because this game is so hard. And we played it again. We were like, "Sure, we already have it all set up. Let's play it again." So we played it again, and we got crushed again. And this time we decided to like let some monsters just go by, try to build up our decks before we got to the next monsters. And we were one step forward, two steps behind because we were just getting crushed. So it's fun, and that's the most important part to take away from this game, is that you do mind losing. It was awful losing, but it's a fun game to play.
Yeah, especially the artwork is deceptive for how challenging the game is, because the artwork is, I don't want to say cute, but it's a little cartoony. I mean, it's beautiful. It looks great, but it really sets you up thinking that this game is probably going to be a little bit easier than it actually is. It's a very challenging game.
I made the comment while we were playing. I was like, "This is hard for a kid's game." And they were like, "This is not a kid's game. Don't tell us that." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I guess it just looks like a kid's game."
Yeah. I believe the designer is Maxima Romberg. He's French. He also did, a game that just came out this year.
Oceanus?
No, I think it was
Arena
for the Gods. Yeah, his other game that I think that might be his second or third game only, but the Big Book of Madness for sure was his like first like big breakout game. So
yeah, it's so good. It's a great game. I recommend it for anyone who wants a challenge. And maybe we're just terrible at board games. Maybe you're going to tell me you picked it up and you beat it day one. It's very possible.
No, we like it, and we definitely have beaten it, but it was not, this is one of those games that my wife immediately fell in love with, and we played over and over and over again. So we got to the point where we were winning pretty regularly, but it was not immediately. That is for sure.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. I'm glad we get to spend that much time playing it. So it was fun. But enough about my shortcomings. Why don't you tell me about what you played this past weekend?
So, I'm going to go through my game pretty quick just because I think our board game show topic might take maybe a considerable amount of time, and we got to, be respectful of folks' time. So I'm going to run through this pretty quick. The game that I played a little bit this weekend is a little bit of an older game, but I think it's one that we continually go back to, and we're looking for a strategy game that isn't going to tax our brains too much. And that is Lords of Waterdeep, designed by Peter Lee and Rodney Thompson. It's a strategy game set in the Dungeons and Dragons universe, which is probably a turnoff for some people right away because they hear D&D and they're like, I don't really want to touch this thing. I'll be honest, I've never played Dungeons and Dragons in my entire life, but I still think this game is great. I have no idea how this fits into the lore of Dungeons and Dragons, and you don't need to, but it is just a really cool entry-level strategy game. You play as a mysterious Lord of Waterdeep, and there are numerous of them in the game. Each have different powers, so there's some variable player power there. And you're just basically trying to increase your influence over the city. And this is basically done by, you have agents that work for you. You place them in locations around the city, and they earn resources for you to complete quests. That is basically the game. Now, there are some intrigue cards that you have that increase player interactions. You can like attack other players or give them mandatory quests to do that they have to finish before they can do the quests in their hands and things like that. But for the most part, you're literally like putting people in places, collecting those resources, bringing quests to earn points, and moving on to the next person. And that, for the most part, is the game. So it's an excellent quote-unquote first Euro. So if you've heard of European games, or you're thinking about getting into your Euro games, Lords of Waterdeep is a really good entry or step into those games. It's going to give you the basics of how things work. It's going to have a little bit of player interaction. So there's a little bit of take that with it, but it's also going to kind of give you the feel of like, hey, you put people in places, you gain resources. How do you manage? Like, how do you plan what's going to be most important? Because, if your opponent puts a person in a city or in a location, you can't put a person there. So you need those resources. Now, what do you do? So it's a cool game. And I think for how straightforward it is, because there's a lot of different buildings that can be built. There's all those variable player powers, but depending on which lord you are, it really makes the game feel a little different every time you play it. And nice thing to it is the expansion for it, Scoundrels of Skullport, is excellent. So I definitely recommend just the base game of getting that. But if you enjoy that base game, the expansion for it just makes it that much better. It's one of those expansions that I pretty much almost never play the base game anymore. I pretty much always play with that expansion. And again, the D&D theme, if that's not something that is up your alley, that is okay. One thing you'll quickly learn when you start playing a lot of Euros is theme typically doesn't matter anyway. But you don't need to. If anything, I think this game suffers from the theme because I think it turns people off because they're like, oh, I don't want to do anything with D&D. But I think that people are definitely missing out. So definitely recommend it, especially if you've never really played Euros before. That's Lords of Waterdeep.
Yeah, I love that. I love that game, and D&D did keep me away from that game for a while, stupidly, but only because I just assumed it was heavy on the story aspect of D&D. So it always turned me off. And then one day we were at a friend's house, and they were like, "Let's play this. We just got it, and we've only played it like once or twice, and it's super easy to pick up, and it's great. I love it. It's one of my favorite games, and we don't have the expansion, so I'm glad to hear that it's a good expansion."
It is. Have you played any of like the Castle Ravenloft or Legend of Drizzt or any of those the other ones?
No, but I think I want to now because I've heard like Dice Tower say some good things about them. But it's always been like, I see that Dungeons and Dragons banner.
I'm the exact same way. I'm the exact same way. Like, I really like this game, but then I like look at those other ones. I'm like, man, these look cool, but it's Dungeons and Dragons. And I probably would love Dungeons and Dragons if I ever actually played it or had a group to play it with, but I just never have. So I feel like, well, I've never really experienced Dungeons and Dragons, so how can I play this board game set there? I don't know. Maybe someday.
Yeah, no, I hear you. All right, so we're moving on.
Let's do it.
Okay, as promised, it's time to start talking about the holiday board game buying list. Kyle and I have been talking about this for a while. We're really excited to tackle this topic, but the challenge is that there are so many. And not that there's so many board games, but there's so many types of board game. I would guess we're not going to have Monopoly on either of our lists. But my boss at work today was like, "What do you guys talk about, like Trouble and Sorry?" I was like, "No." And then we get into a topic about ColecoVision. So that was a nowhere conversation.
Well, I think it was Tom Vassell who was talking about how he was really bummed that the Pop-O-Matic hadn't made it into more games.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, not too long ago. So this week we're just going to start with some personal recommendations, just games that we have personally and that we want to recommend. No structure. Well, there is a structure. Our structure is Kyle's going to talk about a game, and then I'm going to talk about a game. That's our structure. We're going to do a top 5. That's not well. We're going to do 5 games. It's not a top 5. So we're going to give you 10 games. I'm realizing as I have my pile of games with me that I can see you and you can see me, and I'm about to hold up these games to the camera just for you. So what I'm going to do is I'll take pictures of my games after we record. I'll put them on Instagram. For the games that I have that Kyle owns, I'll take pictures of them. And then if
I can take pictures, I can take pictures of the other ones and send them to you,
or I'll just post them. Send them to me, and then I'll post a Josh list and then a Kyle list on the Instagram, so you guys can check out. I'll do fronts and backs, so you guys can get an idea of what you're looking at before you go shopping. So let's just get right into it. So give me your first game, sir.
Yeah, so we're gonna bust through these pretty quickly. So, like I said, check out like Josh said, definitely check out that Instagram post. But the first one I'm gonna recommend, and literally what I did is I stood up my shelf, I looked at all of my games and said, you know what, this game is fun, and I don't think people talk about it much anymore. So most of my games are a little bit older because I think it's really easy to find information on the new hotness. So my number 5 is actually Sentinels of the Multiverse. It's a cooperative superhero card game. Each hero has a pre-built deck, so there's no drafting or nothing like that needs to happen. Each hero, you have a hero who has some special powers. They have a deck that's kind of built around those special powers, and then you are just playing cards as a team to try to take down a supervillain. It's from Greater Than Games. That's mostly what they do. Is they do, Sentinels of the Multiverse. There's a lot of expansions to it as well. So if you get it and you enjoy it, it's really easy to add to the collection to make the game feel different and unique each time you play it. The box that I have for that thing weighs a ton because there's so many darn cards in it, but I love it. It's a game that I think for superheroes that have no real affiliation to like DC or Marvel, these are their own creations. I think they did a great job with them, and I definitely recommend and still enjoy playing Sentinels of the Multiverse.
I can't get past the art.
Really? I think it's pretty great. I think it's wonderful.
I have a tough time with it, but whatever. That's nitpicking. Here, can you hear it? My first game is Lanterns. So Lanterns is by my friends at Renegade Studios. Not Renegade Studios, Renegade Games. Essentially, it's a very beautiful game, and it's a very easy to pick up game. And what you're doing is it's a 2 to 4 player game. This is a game that's great for families. I think it's ages like 6+. And what the game is based on is a Japanese lantern festival. And what you're doing is placing tiles, not dissimilar to Carcassonne or games like that. And what you're attempting to do is gain points by matching colors of lanterns on cards to essentially shoot fireworks to celebrate this festival. And you'll have they do have expansions, but basically what you're doing is gaining points for combinations of colors, having like a certain amount of the same color or one of each color. And as the game goes through, it's essentially a victory point game, but it's very beautiful. It's cheap. It's an easy game to get into. It's a great entry level game, but it is in the lower level for player count. So 2 to 4, you got to have a relatively small family or an average family. But this isn't something I'm necessarily playing at Thanksgiving. This is something my wife and I will bring to a hotel because it's easy to pack, and it's quick and easy to play. It's about 30 minutes long, so it's a nice, quick, and easy.
Awesome. So my next game, you'll notice something on my list as I did this. I really apparently kind of take that-y stuff. My number 4 game is actually a game that was brought back and reprinted, and I think they did a really nice job with it, and that is Sheriff of Nottingham. If you enjoy bluffing and lying to your friends or family, Sheriff of Nottingham is right up your alley. But basically what you were trying to do is you were trying to bring your goods to sale in Nottingham, and you have to get them, and you might, maybe be trying to sell some contraband too while you're there. So you have to try to bluff and get by the sheriff what you were bringing into town. So basically everyone has a little bag. You put in the bag the goods that you're bringing. You hand it to the sheriff and say, I am bringing 6 apples. And maybe in your bag you have 6 apples. I can't remember if you can actually guess 6. We'll say 4. 4 apples. And maybe you have 4 apples. Maybe you have 3 apples and a crossbow. So then it's up to the person who's the sheriff that round, and the sheriff rotates to decide whether they think you're being honest or lying. So your goal, again, is to get as much of your good stuff through as you can and as much of the contraband through as you can without being caught. So being good at lying is helpful. I know some people, they feel bad with their children about encouraging them to lie. I don't have kids, so I can't talk about whether you should or should not do that. But I think if you teach them and it's in the context of a game, maybe it's okay. So yeah, it's a really enjoyable game. I think who you play it with is helpful. So if you have fun friends and fun family, then it's great. If you don't have fun friends and fun family, well, sorry, it's probably not going to be as much fun. But I have a great time with it. I think it's a ton of fun. It's part of the Dice Tower Essential lines from Arcane Wonders, and I highly recommend it. That is Sheriff of Nottingham.
Awesome. I do enjoy that game very much.
I wonder if we're going to have any overlap because we didn't share these lists with each other. So this will be interesting to see.
Well, you have heard of my next game that is on my list, and that is Sagrada. And if you are listening to our podcast, you know that I don't have to talk about this anymore. So I won't.
All right. Sagrada. It seems cool. Every time I go to Barnes & Noble, I look at it and I don't buy it, but I always think about it. So the number 3 game on my list, actually, I felt kind of bad when I put this list together because I realized I put 2 bluffing games in a row on my list, but it's happening anyway. This one's maybe a little more of a edge case bluffing game in the sense of some people don't feel comfortable with this game, but I love it. That's Cash and Guns 2nd edition. You in this game are playing as mobsters who have just finished a heist, and now it's time to decide who gets what loot. And how you decide that is you point foam guns at each other. So there are foam guns in the game that it comes with, and you decide once the loot is put out who you want to potentially shoot. And if you get shot, you don't get to take any of the loot. But once you get a certain amount of wounds, it's bad for you as well. So it's kind of an odd game because you have somebody who's the Godfather, and then you tell everyone to, all right, pick, and then you like aim these foam guns at each other. And then you have to potentially, the Godfather can pick you to choose someone else. So it's definitely not a game for public. It definitely is a game that makes some people feel uncomfortable. But the general concept of the game I find very, very fun. There are people I know who play it just pointing instead of using the foam guns that come inside. But I think it is a good, fun riot. It's a really good game with friends, especially maybe if you've had a drink or two. It can be a lot of fun. And I really, like I said, with the right group of people, Cash and Guns 2nd edition is a good time, and it plays up to, I think, 8. So if you have a big group of friends, it's really easy to get everyone involved, and it's super simple to teach. In 5 minutes, everyone understands what they're supposed to be doing. So that's Cash and Guns 2nd edition.
Nice. I have yet to play that. I've heard great things, though. Third one for me is Codenames. This is the new Cards Against Humanity, as in hotness factor. It is 2+ players. Honestly, you could play with 35 people if you wanted to. It would probably be confusing, but you could. Essentially, if you haven't heard of Codenames, it's entirely possible if you've played a lot of board games, and you probably have seen this, but you might not know what it is. And essentially, it is you play we went through this before because I messed up the name. You play spy masters who know the secret identities of 25 agents, and you have teammates who know the agents only by their code names, which could be Turkey or Honey or Badger. And what you do is essentially you have 2 opposing teams. Each team has a spy master, and they look at this grid that tells them on this 5x5 board you have laid out of all these words, which words represent the spies that they're trying to discover. The first team to discover all the agents, without discovering the spy or the assassin, depending on what variant you're playing, wins. It gets tricky because a lot of times to win, you need to be able to combine your only 1-word clue that you can give out to multiple cards. So if I'm trying to win, I might say to my team, green 5, and that means that there are 5 names on the board that correspond with the clue green. However, if I didn't pay enough attention, I might have been leading them to pick the other team's card or the innocent bystander, which ends your turn, or the assassin, which makes you lose the game. I've just picked vanilla Codenames. There are multiple versions. You have Codenames Undercover, which is the adults version, which is just like looter words. You have Codenames Duet, which I think is great. Great 2-player game. Really should only be played with 2 players. And you have Codenames Disney, which we have not played yet. We'll be playing at Thanksgiving. And then there's also Codenames Marvel that just came out. So you have a pretty good selection. I'm sure there'll be more coming along the way. But that's by CGE, and that's Czech Games Edition, which is the name of their company. They do a lot of great games, but I can't recommend it highly enough, and I probably talked too long about it. So
this is okay. We have Codenames Disney as well, but we have not played it yet either. But hopefully at Thanksgiving, that is the plan. So
yes.
My number 2 game is a game I think is going to be a little more, especially if you have younger folks around and want to try to get them into a game. But I think it plays just as well with adults as well. I have myself never been a fan of Yahtzee. However, King of Tokyo makes me enjoy Yahtzee. So designed by Richard Garfield, the same gentleman who designed Magic the Gathering. Basically, it's exactly what it sounds like. You are trying to become the King of Tokyo. You get to play as a big, sweet monster, and you are basically using Yahtzee dice rolls to determine whether you are attacking, gaining power, gaining health back. Like, what are you doing on your turn? And it's all based off of Yahtzee style dice rolls. The one thing I will say is I think the power-up expansion for me is a must with this game. So it does add a little extra to it, because otherwise all the monsters, they look different, but they're pretty much the same if you just play the base game. Whereas the power-up expansion gives them special abilities and things that only those monsters can do, which I think is a really cool, add some flavor, add some fun to it. But this game, whether I've played it with, kids or younger folks, and I've played it with adults as well, and even people who play a lot of board games, can tend to get into King of Tokyo. So that is my number 2 recommendation, or a game that I think people should play and have a good time with, King of Tokyo.
Shout out to Kevin Austin real quick, because he said some nice words about the podcast, but I gifted that to Kevin Austin. I gifted him my copy because we hadn't played it for a while, and I believe it has the power-up expansion and the Halloween one in it. Mm-hmm. So Kevin, I hope you've played it or are playing it with your kids, because I'd like to hear what you guys think. I think it's a great game, and I'll probably be re-picking it up because I'm pretty sure I'll be getting myself a Alison Hayslett monster soon.
Nice.
I will need the game to incorporate that.
Yeah, and there's another game from Yellow that's on the list.
Another game from Yellow.
Yeah.
So my next pick might be your last pick.
We'll see.
This is my medium heavy game, and it's not really medium heavy. It is in my house. It is, and that is Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle.
It is not my pick. I thought about it, but I'm glad that you picked it.
So you don't need to be a Harry Potter fan to play this game. It certainly helps. But Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle is a fun and challenging, in my opinion, deck builder game. And essentially what you are doing is you're playing, it's 2 to 4 players, right? Yeah, it's 2 to 4 players. You're playing as the character, one of the main characters of Harry Potter. My wife and I are playing as Harry and Hermione. I know that's not the right way to go.
You gotta have Neville. Gotta have Neville.
I'm sorry. We ship Harry and Hermione, so that's how we play. They'll end up together, I promise.
No, we'll talk about that later. But continue on.
No spoilers, right? What you got here is essentially, without getting into the nitty gritty, is you're fighting the big bads for location control. You have locations on the board. You're fighting the villains with your characters by building your deck, by spending points that you earn through the game, while also dodging, deflecting, and attacking the enemies as well. We continuously say we need to keep playing it. We continuously are looking at the Big Box of Monsters expansion. We have yet to bite the bullet. But this game is a must for Harry Potter fans, and it is a great introduction to deck building games. If it's something that you're even remotely interested in, it's one of the top 3, I would say, is great to start with. And for theme alone, like I said, if you like Harry Potter, don't skip on this game.
The appropriate couple to ship is Harry and Luna, but that's fine. We can talk about that some other time.
That's off mic.
Yeah, I love that game. It's phenomenal. The Monster Box of Monsters expansion we picked up recently, but haven't gotten it to the table yet. But I'm excited to do that. My number one game is a game that probably came out quite a while ago. Came out 5 years ago, and for a while was like people were like raving about this game. And this is one of those situations where a game is really good and people like it, but then it kind of just falls off the table and nobody talks about it anymore. And I'm not sure this is necessarily a great game to pull out at Thanksgiving or anything like that. But I think if you're getting into gaming, board gaming, or the hobby board gaming, I think it's a really great game to pick up. And that is Seasons. It's a really cool drafting game from Asmodee. And I put this on the list because this was one of those games that when I first was really getting into hobby board gaming, I played a lot and I really loved. And I saw it and I'm like, man, I haven't played that in a while. So I pulled it out. This game has great graphic design, really solid components. It is a ton of fun, and it introduces you to drafting as a concept, but then you also get to do a lot of dice rolling in it as well. And that's not something that goes together all that often, where you get to draft some cards and sling some dice. And those are like two of my favorite things to do in board games, period, drafting cards and throwing dice. And the fact that I get to do it in that game, and in a game that looks so cool, and is a game that rewards multiple plays because you start to learn all the interactions of the cards and how to build and draft a sweet deck. I just really enjoy it. And it plays pretty quick too. Like once you know what you're doing, I mean, if you have a couple of people who know what's going on, you know, you can get through a whole game in less than an hour, which I think is really awesome. So, you know, if you do see it and you're just getting into hobby board games, I think it's a really excellent one to pick up. Like I said, maybe not for Thanksgiving with a whole bunch of people for the first time, because it only plays up to 4 anyway. But I think Seasons is a game that has kind of gone by the wayside, which is unfortunate because I still think it's quite excellent.
Nice. Maybe next week, maybe we can try to do the family portion of games, because we'll be right before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
We got 2 weeks, I think, to mull that over. Before I talk about my last game, I do want to just say real quick, and this is just coincidental, but I'm coming for you, Barnes & Noble. I want your sponsorship. Every game that I talked about, including this last one, you can literally walk into Barnes & Noble now and buy. And that just happened to work out. I was just looking at it. And obviously online you can do too. So
you can't with mine. Sorry.
No, I know. And I was going to lump them in if I could, but so I'm probably going to say the name wrong, but this game is designed by Manuel Razoy. I'm probably saying all these board game designer names, they're just brutal. That's coming from the ignorant American who doesn't want to pronounce other people's names besides Smith.
At least you recognize.
And Jones. This is a heavy game, okay? This is a 2 to 4 player game. This is not a light game. This is definitely not a Thanksgiving game. This is Time Stories. This is a game that if you are a board game fanatic, you need to play this game. Just if not for how beautiful it is, if not for how great the story that comes in the box is, if not for the amazing and challenging puzzles, you need to get it for camaraderie, is what I'm going to say. It's really a game that a lot of games pit you against each other, and this is definitely a game where that could possibly happen if your friends want to be rogue. But this is really a game where everyone sits and they talk about every decision they make before they make it. Because if you make a decision that the group didn't agree with, you could really mess up your gameplay.
True.
And you got to start all over again. Like you're playing time travel agents. You're playing these people who work for a company who have the ability to travel in time, forward and backward. In this game, specifically backwards, to solve something that happened. And I could tell you, but even telling you a little bit about the game can potentially spoil the story if you're going to play it. The great thing about it is when I got the game, it was like a $60, $70 game. It's not that anymore. I don't know the price range, but I know it's dropped since then. But what you're essentially getting is a legacy style game because I just said because, right? What comes in the box is one story. But then they sell these expansions, which are complete standalone stories that you play with the base game pieces. And some of these are critically acclaimed expansions. That the writing for these games is phenomenal. It's just something I would say look into. I'm gonna post the pictures of the game. You're gonna look at the box and be like, "Oh, I need to get it just based on that box alone." It's really, the pieces are abstract. They're really cool. It's like looking at a weird art piece while you're playing it. The characters are different and unique and fun to play. So, Time Stories is a game I wish I played a lot more of. That we just don't, because it's one of those games that was huge when it came out, and then it just kind of found its way to the shelf, unfortunately, here.
How far have you played more than just Asylum? Have you played the Marcy Case or Prophecy of Dragons?
We didn't get into any of the expansions.
Okay. Because we have, I think all of the expansions, but we're currently ready to start Prophecy of Dragons. Yeah.
This game does have a save system, which I think is pretty cool.
It does, which is awesome for sure.
Which is I think unique in board games to just Time Stories.
There are, oh man. There are games coming out that have it for sure. I think, oh man, Seventh Continent for sure has the save system.
Oh yeah, you're right. Seventh Continent does have it.
Pathfinder, the adventure card game.
Yeah.
And Gloomhaven. Yeah. So I think it's becoming more common, but I think Time Stories was really definitely one of those games that was like on the forefront of that and pushing that. And I think it is like probably in the $30 to $35 range on Amazon now for the base.
I randomly put it on my Amazon wish list. I didn't know what it was. And my folks got it for me as a Christmas gift. That and Seven Wonders Babylon.
Yeah.
So we have those, but I randomly, what an awesome mistake to just like, I saw the box art and I was like, this game looks cool, and then it just happened to be Time Stories. Like, so I'm super happy with that.
I mean, and the company name is Space Cowboys. I mean, how cool is that?
Yeah. They do Galaxy Trucker also, right?
I think so, yes.
Which I have not played. I heard it was very good though.
Yeah, it's not bad. I'm not good at it, so it's like I appreciate what they do with it. I'm just not good at it. So
no, I hear you. Yeah, that wraps up my list.
So okay, knowing all these games are great, but knowing where to get these games can be probably even more helpful for some folks. So Josh, when it comes to board game purchasing, what is your general strategy to buying board games? Like, where do you look? And do you have, like, especially with Black Friday coming up, do you have a Black Friday board game strategy or particular stores or places you go to or look at when it comes to deals?
Yeah, I'll tackle Black Friday first because it's not gonna be crazy. Target leaked their Black Friday ad. They do have a board game sale. So you're limited to their selection, but I would say Captain Sonar is a game that I need to get just based on word of mouth, and that's at Target. So I think I'll pick that up. You're also gonna, I would say, for Black Friday, keep your eye on GameStop now, because they have, with their partnership with ThinkGeek, they've really expanded their board game selection in their stores. You kind of have to weed through the rest of the ThinkGeek stuff that's in there, like the Spencer's Gift stuff. But if you go into your GameStop, you might have to go deep into the store itself, but you'll find a board game section which does have popular, hard to find, and good board games. Like, I was surprised to find Adrenaline and Through the Ages at my local GameStop. And Star Wars Rebellion as well. So if you check their ad out, I'm sure they'll have something about trade-ins, which you can trade in towards board games or just sales in general. And then the places I would say that I shop at, besides Barnes & Noble online for board games, is I think the obvious one is Cool Stuff Inc. But Miniature Market, I don't think a lot of people know about.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I buy most of my games through them. They just posted today. Oh God, I hope my computer decides not to restart. I think get one of those Windows notifications. They posted today. They're going to do a Black Tuesday sale on the 21st. Have over 2,000 items on huge sale. So they posted like a teaser video on their YouTube channel for Miniature Market if you want to check it out, where they kind of talk about some of the games that will be on sale. But that's essentially I got Cry Havoc from them for $40, which is a $60 to $70 game depending on where you go. I got Scythe from them for $60. So they really have really great games on sale, and I will be doing my Secret Santa or Yankee Swap, depending on what part of the country you're from, gift, where we do a $25 minimum for the gift for the swap. And I'm literally just going to go to Miniature Market, and you can search, their board games by price, and I'm going to do, lowest price. And I looked the other day, and I was able to get like 10 games for under $30. They're probably not going to be great games, but it's good for gifts, stocking stuffers, stuff like that. I feel like you're going to be able to find some good holiday savings in places like that. So those are the places that I would say to take a look at. As far as my eye goes, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I agree with most of that. I do most of my board game purchasing through Cool Stuff, just because from a price perspective, they typically are the lowest, even when comparing to like an Amazon.
Amazon. Not so great.
Yeah, Amazon used to be really good for board games, and more their board games are now sold by third parties. They're not sold by Amazon themselves, and they will have occasional really good sales like during like International Tabletop Day and stuff. But like generally, like when I just ordered 3 games from Cool Stuff, and I compared their prices to Amazon, and Cool Stuff was probably $30 cheaper total for the 3 games plus free shipping. So I was like, well, it wasn't 2-day shipping, but it'll still be here this week. So yeah, Cool Stuff tends to be where I go online. However, I also regularly frequent. I have 2 friendly local game stores that are very close to me. I go to them often. One of them is very comic focused, so they only have a few board games, but the staff there is super great. And the other one has a whole bunch of games, and the staff, it depends on who's working. They're kind of hit and miss, but they have a huge selection. And they have basically like all the hotness of, they have as many board games. So that's the place where all the Warhammer players and all that stuff tend to congregate, but their board game selection is stellar. So I go there, just to even look, just to see like what's, have I not heard about, or what have I missed? So don't be afraid to check out local as well. And if you have a quality friendly local game store, I encourage you to peruse their selection and go to them if you can. Often their prices are going to be a little more than what you're going to see online, but I like to go there and play on occasion and things like that as well. So, it's helpful to help kind of keep them in business. So yeah. Outside of that, nothing too different from what you're doing. So
yeah, we have a great local board game. Well, it's a comic shop called That's Entertainment, where they have a huge, awesome board game selection. So if I can go there, I do. And if you pre-order, they'll give you 20% off just for pre-ordering and ordering through them. And they typically have good sales. So we'll go there too. Same idea. I have to like put my blinders up, walk and buy comics and vinyl just to get to the board games, so I don't get sucked back into that world. Okay, cool. So that's it's just a little couple of, we'll talk about as these sales pop up. If we see stuff pop up on like Black Friday ads and stuff, we'll make sure to mention them weekly when we podcast. But right now, Target's the only one I saw that dropped an ad that would have board games. So that's the start of our board game holiday buying guide. Like I said, look for us in the coming weeks. We're going to give you some more focus suggestions. We're thinking all different themes. So we'll leave the hanging up in the air, keep some suspense for you guys. But one thing we know their Black Friday deals are in video games already. Just a Target ad alone, I'm like, ugh.
I know, okay.
Right? What am I gonna do? So, skipping the Black Friday portion, what have you been playing?
Well, I'm going to pull an audible on you, and you're not going to see this coming because I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So we're just going to go to the video game topic of the show. How does that sound?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's just skip what we're playing. So it was announced today that Telltale Games is laying off about 25% of their workforce, or around 90 people, in order to better suit what they said is to better suit the company for game development and be competitive moving forward. Obviously, we wish the best to those who have been affected. It's always unfortunate when people get laid off. But I just want to take a minute or two to talk about our relationship with Telltale Games, what we think of them, and what we'd like to see from them in the future. Like, if they're really trying to position themselves to be competitive and improve things, what does this mean for them? So, Josh, what Telltale Games have you played? You know, do you consider yourself a Telltale fan? What are your thoughts on Telltale as a developer? And kind of when you heard this news, what did it mean to you?
Yeah, so, I mean, I started with Telltale at Walking Dead. I loved it so much. I actually looked up what they had previously done, and I think it was just Jurassic Park and Back to the Future. Mm-hmm. So I went to GameStop and I bought those games.
Oh
no! So there was a reason why I hadn't heard of Telltale until Walking Dead. So their focus definitely shifted for the better with Walking Dead. I'm not going to bash a company who just laid off. Well, maybe I should bash them for laying off all these employees. I loved the first season of Walking Dead. What caught me off guard with Telltale was their ability to make choose your own adventure exciting and fun. Like as a kid, I would read choose your own adventure books, and those are fun for 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. Until you realize you can just cheat, or you can just read every page. Like they managed to take that idea and make it more interactive, cinematic. I love the art style. Let me get to the games I played. So I played season 1. I played half of season 2, maybe not even half. Played most of season 2. I played Tales from the Borderlands, Fables. I played the first episode of Batman. But I'm a huge Batman fan, so I had to stop myself. The only reason why I didn't finish season 2 is because it was so long in between plays, because it lost my save from season 1. So I had to replay through season 1 of Walking Dead, which when I started playing, I didn't think I was going to hate that idea. Mm-hmm. And eventually it turned into, like, when season 1 came out, what the best part of it was comparing at the end of each chapter, they would give you a page of the decisions you'd make.
Right.
And, me and all my friends, we would take a picture and then we would show each other what we did. And then we would talk about it. Like, that was awesome. A game that you can play where you think the end outcome is going to be different from each game's playthrough. And then you can say, oh my God, I didn't save that person. And you did. I wonder how that's going to shake out at the end. Only like 3 chapters later to be like, oh, that person I saved died. Oh, mine too. So, they did a great job at the illusion, though, of making your decisions matter. Mm-hmm. Where I stand on Telltale now is I found that the first game had a lot of issues and glitches, and I assumed that they were growing pains. And in my case, it wasn't the case. So every Telltale game I have played, I have had issues with. To end it on the Batman thing, because I'm such a huge Batman fan, I was thrilled to play this. I was like, I can't imagine a better company to pick up after Rocksteady did the phenomenal Arkham games to get us a narrative choose your own adventure Batman game. I was like, this is awesome. So I played the first episode. I very vividly remember meticulously playing this game the way I want my Bruce Wayne and the way I want my Batman to be for my story. Until there's a scene inside Bruce's mansion where you're talking to the mob boss, and you have a very specific choice. You can either cower to his demands or tell him to get the heck out and never come back. I chose to tell him to get the heck out, and the game decided that they would use a different animation than the button I pressed.
Oh, geez.
Which changed the whole narrative of my story to Bruce caving into this dude's demands. Even though it highlighted the button I pressed, it showed the response I wanted, and it glitched to the different narrative, and it ruined it for me. Because I said to myself, how can I play through the rest of this game thinking that maybe another thing like this will happen, or that I'm going to get to the point in the story where that decision drastically affects the current narrative where I am. And if it was any other property, if it was a Walking Dead or something else, it wouldn't have bugged me so much, but I had to draw the line. I would say the one game I didn't have any issues with was Fables and Tales of the Borderlands. But I never finished Tales from the Borderlands because I'm crazy.
It's so good.
And I'm such a big Borderlands fan, and I'm a huge Chris Hardwick fan, and he's in the game. And I don't know why I never finished it. Also, I left out Game of Thrones. I didn't finish that either, but I bought the whole thing. I think they ended up giving it away for free anyways. Same with Borderlands. I bought the season pass. I never finished it, which bums me out. But I have a lot of games like that. Like, I'll eventually play it.
Gotcha.
And just to cap off my rant on it, the whole thing, I think it sucks when any company lets anyone off at this time of the year.
Yeah.
It really doesn't not make me feel bad for any corporation. I really feel, having worked in retail for so many years, I know that they didn't have to do it now. And that's what I hate the most about it. This isn't something that jumped up on Telltale. They didn't all of a sudden go, they could have let people go in September. They could have let people go maybe in August. I know that's assuming a lot, and I'm just going to stick with my assumption because...
Well, they just got a new CEO in like September.
Sure, so then I blame that guy.
Oh, and it probably is. And I'm sure they probably brought in a new CEO because they were losing profitability. And who knows? I mean, I don't want to speculate completely, and but that's probably why it's happening now, and it didn't happen 2 months ago. It's because they now have a CEO who's like, look, we got to make some changes if we're gonna, continue moving forward as a company. And you're right, it sucks. Like anytime somebody has to lose their job, it's definitely unfortunate. I mean, the question being, and not saying that it's as simple as this or it would work out this way, is 90 people, which is 25% of their workforce. So that assumes that they have close to almost 300 people who are still working there.
Yeah.
Like, is it better to lay off 90 people now to have to lay off everyone in a year? You know what I'm saying? Like, and it may not work that way. Everything may have been fine either way. But I think sometimes it's like, well, what's the better decision? I don't know. That's why I don't get paid the big bucks to make those decisions.
Yeah. No, I get you. And I mean, it makes sense in a way. Like a lot of game developers join companies knowing they'll be fired or let go once the game is made. So I get that. I mean, and we don't know what they have that they're currently working on necessarily, but I'll tell you what, letting go people is not gonna make these games better.
Well,
unless they're bringing on different people.
So
the less people making a glitchy game ain't gonna fix those glitches.
I mean, potentially. It depends on how they're restructuring and what they are. Are they going to reduce the number of games that they're playing or that they're making so that they can have more people focusing on the engine? There's a lot of theory out there that Unity's CEO is one of their board members. So there's a lot of theory that they're going to be bringing Unity in as their engine now to help, stay. And maybe that's what I feel like they're using their own homegrown thing. So that's what a lot of theory is that's part of the reason they're getting rid of these people, is because they're going to be able to bring in a third-party engine to use. Who knows if that's true or not? I have no idea.
That's why this works. I'm the emotional one. You're the level-headed one. You keep me sane and on point.
I feel it's really unfortunate. This getting laid off at this time of the year is never a good thing. And I'm a big Telltale fan for the most part. Like I've played, I think, everything other than the Minecraft games. Those are the only games I haven't played.
I didn't play the Minecraft ones.
Yeah. And, I played Walking Dead 1, 2, and 3, and then 300, Michonne in 300 Days or whatever it was. And Tales from the Borderlands was one of my favorite games of that year. That game came out of nowhere, and it had no business being as good as it was. And Wolf Among Us was phenomenal, and I'm really glad we're getting a second season of that, because they have said anything that's announced is still happening. So we should be getting a new season of that next year. Batman was good. I thought the first season was good. I have purchased the Guardians of the Galaxy, but I haven't played it yet because I always wait till everything's out. I always buy their games when they're on sale, because their games go on sale all the time. So I think I got Guardians of the Galaxy for $10.
Oh, nice.
So I haven't played it yet. But yeah, I think the hard thing is that they do have a lot of technical issues. I remember in the latest episode of The Walking Dead, or the latest season of The Walking Dead, very specifically, was trying to be vague and not spoil anything if anybody's ever going to play it. Like, there's a part where you have to like make a choice about some characters, who are going to continue or not continue. And I had made my choice, and then I have this person who's with me, and then like at one cutscene, it was the person who I had not picked was the person in the cutscene. And then it went after that cutscene, it went back to being the person I had picked. It was just, I was like, I mean, really? And then in Batman, there were situations where I was like, I was trying to be like really non-violent the whole time. And then they talk about how like brutal I am. I'm like, I didn't do anything. Like, I was super nice. Like, what do you mean how brutal I've been? I haven't done anything to anyone. Like,
I just picture that thing you were talking about in Walking Dead. It's like, it would be like going to see Batman Begins, and in the middle of Christian Bale talking to Alfred, it's Val Kilmer talking to Alfred.
Exactly. That's literally like what it was.
What the heck?
Yeah. So I hope that this results in their storytelling is solid. Like,
yes,
I think most people would agree that it would be nice if the choices they made mattered a little more, like in like a game like Until Dawn, which, like, wow, if you played that, like, your choices were all over the map as far as what could happen in that game, even up to the very, very end. Things could drastically change. So
the very end, like the last second,
literally the very end. I mean, things could drastically change. So I hope this helps them develop better technical games, and that they can continue to tell good stories. And I would be okay with them doing less, but doing it at a higher quality. And if this allows them to do that, like I said, it's always unfortunate when people lose jobs, but I don't want to say, but like, oh, this would make it okay. But I'm hoping that as a result of this not good thing, that the quality of the games we get in the future are better, because they focus on less, are able to, whether it be Unity or whatever they do, increase the quality of their engine and their technical prowess to at least hopefully get it up to where their storytelling is. And by taking extra time to do that, hopefully they can refine their storytelling even more.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you. And I think that makes perfect sense. I don't know. I feel like for a company that's disappointed in me, I feel like letting people go is the wrong direction emotionally. That's how I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
But I get it. It's just, I don't know, with BioWare and now this, and then what we just had happen with EA, like, it's just been a bummer of a thing. But once again, I was super happy to see that Borderlands guys jumped right on Twitter and were like, guys, we're so sorry to hear what happened, but Gearbox is hiring.
Yeah,
come on.
That is the one thing I will say that is very, very cool about the video game industry, is that, whenever this happens, like with Runic last week, who I talked about Hob on this podcast and how amazing that game was, and then Runic gets shut down, and it right away people are like, hey, we're hiring.
Guys.
Yeah, I know. Oh, so sad to hear that. But like right away, other developers are like, we're hiring, we have positions, get in contact, here's what we get, what can we do? And it's just so unfortunate, and I don't know if I could handle being in an industry where I'd have to move, knowing I'd have to probably move like every 3 years, and having a family where I'd be like, all right, kids, we're going again, new school, oh, that would be so hard. I can't. This is why I buy so many games, because I don't want these things to happen to people. All right, well, I think that probably should about wrap up our conversation in regards to Telltale, because otherwise Kevin will yell at us for going too long. So, Josh, what do you say? Should we wrap up this show?
Sounds good. Well, wow, I can't believe we talked that's good. We talked a lot about board games. You're welcome.
We did.
Thanks for joining us, guys. Remember, find us on social media. That's at BoardWithVG. Use the hashtag BoardWithVG. I'm just going to plug the Instagram. I mean, we're at 69 followers already. I think that's pretty good for a 4-week-old podcast, in my opinion. So check us out. We're going to do our best to keep posting games we're playing. I'm still waiting for you guys to comment and show me what you're playing. So please do that. Splig, we got your questions. Hopefully your first question we answered. And I think next week we'll be addressing your second question. So hit me up if you have specific questions. I'll be happy to respond on Twitter. You can hit me up at BoardWithVG. I'll respond on that, or you guys can find me at Josh Bones on Twitter. Kyle.
Well, you can find me. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, PlayStation Network, and BGG at Psychocross, CYCOCROSS. If you have suggestions for future topics, please be sure to reach out to us on social media. We love hearing from you, everyone, and talking to everyone. Josh is killing it on the Instagram, so make sure you're following the things he's doing. I have to start doing a better job with Twitter, so I'm going to work real hard to do that. And remember, everyone, whether it be board games or video games, never stop gaming.